welcome to Solidarity Live. Hi, Alex. Good morning.
Morning. How are you? I think you were on mute right at the beginning of that. So I think what you said is good morning. Welcome to Solidarity Live.
How will people know I was happy to see them?
I
It's
know.
terrible.
I think the enthusiasm came across, though. So,
That's wonderful.
which is good because we're going to be talking about some good stuff today that the government can do. It's always fun to talk about what the government can do. But a big part of why we're talking about it is we should be honest about what the government has not done and why what we're asking for and what we're demanding is, like we've been polite for a while here, Jocelyn. I know this has been our polite stance, and we're about to change that stance a little bit and be a little bit more demandy. I would say that the Biden administration keeps its promises using the power that it has, that they don't let Joe Manchin set the agenda. So I don't know if you want to set it up a little bit more.
Well, I think the moral that people need to realize is that there are a lot of things we can do through the executive branch if necessary. Things that a lot of naysayers will say, oh, well, then the next president could just undo it. It's a little bit more complicated than that. People tend to like good things once they get them. And there is nothing that unites Americans so thoroughly as to the exorbitant, murderous, egregious, overpriced healthcare costs that we are struggling with in this country right now, which just continue to skyrocket through a global pandemic, through the government-funded technology that was paid for with our taxpayer dollars, whether it's a COVID vaccine or, advances in cancer treatment, antibiotics, everything that we need to survive as human beings. The U.S. healthcare system should be one of the best in the world. And instead, it's become a price gouging mechanism to rob the working and middle class of their hard-earned wages. And it's disgusting. And President Biden has been coming out stronger and stronger, claiming to be against all this madness. And we're saying, okay, all right, President Biden, if you care about this, you can absolutely do something. That is why you are the president. You don't need to keep punting it over to Congress to get stymied by Manchin and Sinema.
Yes, exactly. The powers of the executive are huge. And we want legislative victory. It is more durable. It is more profound. It's deeper. It also can be reversed, though, right? So the whole idea that the next president can come in. Well, the Supreme Court, which is absolutely a captured corporate entity, can also overturn legislation. So you don't not do things because, the opposition might in the future win and get rid of it. You do it because all of everything is politics and power. And if the American people actually, say absolutely not, you're not going to raise my drug prices. The Supreme Court or the next president or whoever is going to actually be impacted by that.
And I think people don't have enough respect for political inertia. It's very difficult to undo rights that people have become accustomed to and invested in. And that is why Republicans love the filibuster, because they know that doing nothing always favors the extremely powerful. Once people have things, it's very difficult to take it away from them. So as long as they can keep things like affordable healthcare, affordable housing, economy that doesn't run on the blood and fire of everything we hold dear, they know if we have those things, we're going to become more protective of them when they're real than they are when they're abstract. I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but I was listening to a podcast about French tourism because, Alex, we both love France. And it
That's
actually
true.
veered into a conversation about healthcare. And they talk about how in France, which is one of the best public healthcare systems in the world, even a basic cold medication going from $5 to $7 people will revolt because they've become accustomed to a certain lifestyle, literally. I don't think anyone in Europe could ever wrap their minds around six-figure healthcare bills. They would riot, as they should. We, meanwhile, are like the frog in the pot of boiling water. And so, yes, thank you, President Biden. Thank you for, in the abstract, agreeing with us. But you actually can do a whole lot with executive orders if you're so inclined to.
Yep, time is up. And so what we are talking about, and I think we should just let, we had a press conference yesterday. It's Friday, 2 days ago, where we kicked off this campaign calling on President Biden to use executive action to lower drug prices. And I think if we go to clip 3, Erica Sawyer talking about insulin, it was just incredibly important to hear her set the problem up from how it actually looks in people's lives.
Insulin has impacted me every single day since the time of my diagnosis at the age of 10. From early on, rationing insulin was a concern and a reality for my family and myself. Whenever my insulin ran out before our prescription had renewed, and I wasn't able to get insulin through insurance because it was not even a chance to pay out of pocket for how expensive insulin is without insurance. Whenever this happened, I had to share insulin with my great-grandfather who had type 2 diabetes that lived in the house with us. This form of rationing and sharing became so normal for my family that it wasn't even a thing that we thought about, or how horrible it was that we had to share this thing that was keeping both of us alive. But this rationing is a reality for 1 in 4 diabetics in America. But it's a dangerous practice that can lead to unstable blood sugar levels, that can lead to negative long-term health effects, and has resulted in the death of many diabetics.
I mean, that's like also like that's the good case, right? Like that's the good case in the reality of our wealth extraction system. I've changed it a little bit because I will call it a healthcare system because it works really well for rich people. So what America has is a rich person healthcare system delivering really world-class care to rich people. Non-rich people, you're going to have to beg, borrow, steal, or die. So Erica was able to share with another patient, meaning both of them were taking less insulin than they were supposed to. And for a type 1 diabetic, and we've, I think, talked about this on here before, but I don't think people fully grasp what rationing insulin means, right? So like in the extreme, if a type 1 diabetic doesn't get enough, they can die, right? But everywhere in between, it's hurting them. It's harming them, right? You need the correct amount of insulin. When you take less than that, the best case scenario is you're shaving off years of your life from the end, right? So you're not going to live as long because you're putting strain on all of your systems in your body. But the other thing that I really wish people could like have explained to them the way I have is that rationing insulin also means that a type 1 diabetic needs to starve themselves, right? So if they don't take enough insulin, they have to actually eat less. And so rationing insulin, our system right now charges these prices that forces people to starve themselves, ration their insulin in order to live. That's how immoral our system is.
And 25% of people do it. This isn't a fringe case, which is something that I think it's becoming more talked about, which is great. But Laura Packard and I talked about this on here a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people are so gripped by shame for not being able to afford these healthcare costs, because financial shame is such a powerful force in this country. And it's easy to feel like, oh, you know, I'm the rare person who's doing this, or things are tight right now, or next year it'll be different. No, 25% of people who need insulin to survive are rationing it in this way. 67% of cancer patients are turning down necessary chemotherapy drugs. 67%. That's unconscionable. This is a death sentence for a large portion of America. And again, I know I cite this study a lot, but I think it's important. 2018 School of Public Health at Harvard found that 45,000 people a year die from lack of healthcare coverage. That's death. We're not talking about the people who have chronic issues that go untreated. We're not talking about people who don't get the care they need or maybe go bankrupt accessing the care they need. No, we're talking about people who straight up, this is a death sentence for them.
Yeah, and so we know right now that President Biden can lower the price of insulin, and he has a couple different avenues on that. He can instruct the FTC to break up the obvious illegal cartel that it's 3 companies that raise the price of insulin in lockstep. It looks like stairs. They just 3 companies magically raising their prices the exact same. That's illegal collusion. It's a cartel, and they raise the price up just enough so that some people die, so that everyone else is terrified enough that they'll spend all of their money on the insulin they need to live. And that is the president's job. He's said, and he keeps holding up insulin as the example of what is wrong and why, you know, we need to act. But we haven't acted, right? Like we've been pushing on the legislative agenda, and it's stalled out because, you know, Biden promised us that he could get Joe Manchin's vote, and he hasn't brought in Joe Manchin's vote. So it's up to him now. I don't care if you use your executive authority or legislative authority. You have to act. You made promises, and you have to act. President Biden can also say to the federal agencies that they should publicly manufacture insulin. California Governor Gavin Newsom talked about that. The federal government could also create a landscape, make it very clear that if a state does manufacture insulin, that it would be that everybody in the rest of the country would be able to access that insulin produced by the state of California, for example. Insulin is this really interesting one because it's not patents that are keeping people out. It's illegal collusion between 3 companies. And I say this in the, you know, what we can go wherever you want with this, Jocelyn. But when I'm on the Hill talking about this and I say this next part, people are like, it seems like a bridge too far. And I'm like, it's not, it's the same. Why? The mafia in New York, the 5 families, they used to control the construction trade. And there were multiple rackets that they had, and they divided them up. But, you know, the way they did it, the big moneymaker was concrete. So what they did is they all worked together to raise the price of concrete in an illegal cartel. And what that meant is if you were building a building in New York, you were paying more for concrete than anywhere else because these mafia front groups had actually controlled the market in a cartel. And what would happen if an honest broker came in, right? So some honest broker comes in and talks to Trump's buddy. By the way, that's true. Trump's buddy was the guy who, the mafia guy who controlled bricks and concrete. An honest broker either, you know, like somebody visits him in his house and threatens him. You know, they're like, oh, I can sell this for market rate instead of the colluded rate. Somebody visits them in their house and threatens them, or otherwise subsumes them into the cartel. So this is a market failure of the highest order, and it's an illegal one We have, as a country, sent people away to prison for decades and decades and decades for this exact same thing with concrete, with gas. This is like there are a few things that organized crime does. There are rackets that like they base everything on. So protection, collusion, and cartelism, and obviously selling illegal drugs. What we've got here is three companies acting entirely as an organized crime syndicate with one goal, which is it's a racket to extract money, strong arm money out of people who need insulin every day to live. And why can't the market solve it? Same reason that you couldn't buy honest concrete in New York from like the 50s to 1990s is because if somebody comes in, the cartel grabs them and brings them in to become part of the cartel. So there is no answer here that the market could actually do. This is the opposite of a market. This is a market failure, so much so that this huge black market has sprung up where people are sharing insulin with their family or friends and strangers over the internet or begging for money to afford. All of that is because these three companies are operating an illegal cartel. So all that has to happen, insulin is actually not that difficult to produce. Even all the analogs, everything like that, the newest types, we could produce those. And if it's a government production like California, does it, they won't be part of the cartel, and it undercuts the whole cartel. Then the cartel goes poof out of existence. It's that simple of a solution, but everyone's scared. They're scared of the murderous racket by this insulin cartel, the same way that people were scared of La Cosa Nostra in New York City. But just like organized crime, it only takes a few brave individuals within government to be like, we can crush this. We can actually crush a cartel quite easily. And so that's like the easiest one that I see on what we can do with the highest impact. We're talking about 7 million Americans who are type 1 diabetics. About 500,000 of them are completely uninsured. So they face the entire cost of insulin on their own, which is $300 at least a month for one vial. And some people take multiple types of insulin. So it could be $900 a month just to stay alive out of their pocket. And even if you do have insurance, people who have crappy insurance will find that they're footing a huge part of the bill as well. So we need to address this. Everyone agrees we need to address this. And we know that President Biden has the power to do so.
Well, and I love that you said that, because people, anyone who watches The Sopranos knows that that is what happened. The government got bolder and eventually did take the mafia in hand and say, hey, this isn't going to work here anymore. And yes, of course, it was terrifying for the public servants who did it, but it happened. There's a reason that The Sopranos now feels like a nostalgic call to another era, because we can change these things.
And you want to know, this will be my discordant note, and we can argue about this, but I will give him the credit. And it's why his bender into like where he is. I
wasn't going to say his name, but
I know, but it's Rudy Giuliani.
I know.
Rudy Giuliani is the guy, and I'm like, man, you could have been the guy who was remembered as actually breaking mafia stranglehold in New York. But you decided to go and be the guy who's remembered for farting at the hearing, or the going down, or literally the most entertaining / terrifying but super entertaining bender that I've ever seen an individual embark upon. So I just wanted to put that there, that they don't even need to be good people to be brave to take on this cartel. Whoever does it will be remembered, even if they end up farting on camera at like the hearing and the makeup dripping and all of that stuff, I'll still remember Rudy Giuliani for that thing. A public servant who takes on this cartel will be remembered in the same way. Hopefully they don't do the bender. Yeah, the fascism part.
Yes. And it's really interesting how problems that pop up relatively quickly can suddenly become, oh, what could we do about this? This thoroughly unavoidable thing that didn't even exist a couple decades ago. Big Pharma's stranglehold on the American public is relatively new. This is not something that's unavoidable. This is not some intrinsic part of the American capitalist process, though obviously most of that is bad as well. But this is a horribly recent, stirringly bad development that we can fix. Yeah. And it really could just be the executive branch. We do not need Joe Manchin. In fact, the idea that we need Joe Manchin is another part of governmental gaslighting that we're all being, oh, I hate him. Okay, great. But there's a lot of things that Biden can do without congressional support, and he should do those things because that's why he was elected.
Yeah.
And if we want to go to clip 1 with Addie talking about this, Democrats were elected to do these things. And if they don't do them, they are quite justifiably going to lose the public's trust.
President Biden and Secretary Becerra already have the existing legal authority to lower drug prices. They don't need to wait on Congress. Build Back Better sought to address prescription drug prices, but with the fate of the legislation up in the air, it is even more critical that Biden act now to make drugs competitively priced and affordable. Not only would this be the morally correct action to take, but also the politically wise one. Heading into the midterms this year, we will all have endured more than 2 years of a pandemic that has caused lasting damage to every aspect of society. Democrats barely squeaked out a victory in the last presidential election, and now we're headed for a big fight to hang on to our thin congressional majorities. And in the calculation about who would best represent them, voters will question whether or not their lives improved under Democratic rule. We cannot take civic participation for granted. We must give people a reason to head to the polls.
Yeah, it's Addie's insight is amazing, and he's been in this fight for an incredibly long time as well. He talked about it at the launch of Make Meds Affordable on Wednesday. And he started a bunch of his activism with Universities Allied for Essential Medicines, which is Meredith's organization, who's a frequent guest on the show. And they took on Pharma. I was actually working in an HIV clinic, seeing what the impact of the high prices of antiretrovirals. And with one change, they just forced their school, Yale, to break one patent, and it dropped the price of an antiretroviral drug, a critical one, by 98%, right? So that's the thing. When it's illegal cartelism or just this monopoly pricing power that's granted by the government and then protected by corruption, which is the other way that pharma operates, is they are given a patent and then they buy politicians to defend their ability to charge that much. The whole point of all of this is like free marketists, who I generally are like, you guys are just children, but they're also liars, because all of them should be on my side, fighting against the least market-based goods that we have here, which is pharma. All it is it's like if a 1987 Honda Accord just kept appreciating in value, right? And people are like, ha ha ha, that would never happen. You're like, exactly. There's no way that this drug would actually increase in price year after year after year. That's an impossibility without monopoly power. And it's either granted by the government, or the illegal acts that are used to keep it, like a cartel, are ignored by the government. But it all comes down to corruption. Their business model is corruption. They buy the political blockers. And we can, we've talked about this a lot, but like, they're really good at it, Jocelyn. I think that's one of the things that the left sometimes underplays, is how good our opponents are. And so why it's so important to just never cede a millimeter. We can't allow them to think that they're going to win on anything. And this fight, I've been here 15 years fighting, and we have some wins, we have some losses. I will state, though, that Pharma used to, when they won, and drug prices kept going up, it would be very, very demoralizing. And so they would buy themselves like some more time, right? Because everyone's like, oh, we tried and we missed. But now when they win, it just makes everyone madder. So they are in a situation where the only question is when are they going to pay the piper for the harm that they've caused, for the corruption, for all of it, and the whole house of cards will come crashing down. I mean, Rice, who was one of the Pharma bought Democrats who held it up, Build Back Better in committee and put in all these Pharma watering down of our policy. She had to leave government now. Now, don't shed a tear for her, because she's going to be, it's welcome the next vice president of government affairs of Pharma. That's what they do. She's got her post public job lined up for her. But that's why we went forward and are going so hard on executive action right now, because the momentum is still fully with us. And if people in DC think that people outside DC care at all how you get their drug prices lowered, they're just like fully mistaken. No one cares. They just want lower drug prices. That's it. And it's deliver. And it's not, we tried really hard. I don't care if you tried really hard and then Joe Manchin is a meanie. I don't care. I don't accept any excuses. It's just, are drug prices going down or up? During Donald Trump's administration, as you know, he promised he was going to drive drug prices down. Well, guess what? You can look at it. Did drug prices go down or up? Up across the board. Barack Obama, he at least was sort of honest about his corruption, because he made a corrupt deal with Pharma right off the bat. One of the first things he did in office, he signed a deal. They wouldn't attack Obamacare. And the cost of that is 8 years of steady increases of pharmaceutical prices. And he never touched Pharma. The reality that could have been a President Clinton was actually really lined up to take on Pharma. And we'll never know. But now Joe Biden is up. He's at the plate, ready to take his swing. And we will be able to judge it. Are prices going up or are they going down?
And it's not terribly complex. I think that a lot of people fall prey to this both sidesism of, there must be some nuanced reason. There is no nuanced reason. Money and power are incredibly compelling reasons to continue doing evil things, which is why we need to call this what it is. It is evil, straight up. People are killing people and getting away with it. And it's legal. And not only is it legal, it's government funded. These people would not be able to develop the drugs they do without government research straight from the National Institute of Health in Southern Maryland. It is, what we are watching is unparalleled evil. And it's something that I'm happy. Obviously, how could I not be happy to have a president who's talking about it? But talking about it isn't enough, because people are dying every single day. People are found dead every single day because they couldn't afford their antidepressants. They couldn't afford their insulin. They couldn't afford something which, this is a problem. The human body is an interconnected system. So it's very difficult to talk about execution by the American healthcare system, because it's not always linear. Sometimes it's people who don't go for preventative care because they're afraid, completely rightly, that they're going to get ripped off by their provider. And so something is missed until by the time it's caught, it's too late. And this isn't a world that any of us want to be handing to our children. This isn't a world any of us want to be living in right now. And the good news is, though, and this is, for me anyway, it's exciting that it's being talked about more instead of like, even a few years ago, I think we were all quieter about this because it felt so individualized to our personal lives. And Congresswoman Jayapal said on a show we produced recently, the narrative has changed. The narrative has changed. And you're right, Alex. Now, whenever these people do something evil and bad, it's getting talked about. And it's invigorating people to say, okay, yeah, enough is enough. This can't go on much longer.
Yeah, and I like I said, I've been doing this, so I can tell you, I fought them. There used to be 60 pharmacrats or 60 pharma Dems. Representative Lloyd Doggett called them pharmacrats, and I was like, stealing that. They used to be, overtly on the side of pharma, and we just changed that. We're like, oh, well, whatever benefit you're going to get from the pharma dollars, we're going to triple that with the backlash that you're going to get from your constituents, your voters, and, the enmity of a collection of us like me. I will carve your name in my heart to hate forever, follow you for the rest of your political career, and make it as short as possible. And I have all sorts of ways of doing that. I have a PAC. We'll endorse your competitor, right? Like, we're going to we will never stop on this. And that's just us at Social Security Works, and us at act.tv. We're exposing this problem, and the momentum has absolutely shifted because now politicians are scared or embarrassed to be caught on the side of pharma, and our allies are the ones. They used to belittle us, like, oh, you just don't know how things work. And now we've got our champions and allies saying, no, it's you who don't know how things work. Currently, you are still working on how President Reagan and Margaret Thatcher set things up in the 80s, but it's a new era that we're in right now. So I think maybe clip number 5 from
I was going to say clip 5. Dang.
Oh, good.
Perfect.
Clip 5 from Senator Warren, I think, is a really good one to get this tone shift.
We've given drug companies free rein to engage in rampant price gouging right on the backs of consumers. And this has worked out great for drug companies. Drug companies are continuing to rake in record profits. Pfizer expects to pull in, I hope everybody's sitting down, expects to pull in an eye-popping $100 billion in revenues in 2022. And out of that revenue, they expect to make over $20 billion in profits. And other giant drug manufacturers like AbbVie and Sanofi and Bristol Myers Squibb have posted blockbuster profits in the last year.
And it's blood money. It's straight up blood money. If we had...
And it's rivers of blood money. That's, 30 billion that they can spend, right? So I don't want to, you go where you were going, but that number means that they have enough money to buy every single member of Congress, every single one of them, if the members would take their money. And they would still they'd be like, oh yeah, that didn't even crack $1 billion, right? Like, we've still got 29 more of them per year right now. Sorry, Jocelyn, I cut you off.
No, and I obviously want to emphasize that it's not just big pharma, as we talk about a lot on here. It's also big healthcare and big hospital. But what matters is that the current modern American healthcare system is awash in blood money, and it's crushing patients. It's crushing people's will to care for their own health. It's also crushing providers, though, too, which is something that I love is being talked about more and more with a lot of really good journalism about what this does to physicians who almost uniformly get into healthcare to help people sure, it's a good living, but very few people are going to go through the 10 years of rigorous schooling, including a residency where you're making like 50K while paying back six figures in loans, unless you don't legitimately want to save lives and help people. And physicians and nurses and PAs are going through this to then have to deny life-saving care to their patients. It's disgusting. And a lot of amazing medical activists have been pointing out this is a violation of my right to protect life implicitly, to turn to somebody who needs life-saving medication and know they can't pay for it, or life-saving care that they can't pay for, and people are just dying. What else do you do?
Yeah, you jail the wrongdoers, or otherwise take away their ability to continue the crimes that they're committing. The sort of rhetoric, the flavor of outrage that Senator Warren brings on that clip and in the launch of Make Meds Affordable, Senator Warren has always been telling truth to power, and now that she is power, she's just telling truth to more powerful. And that is, the pharmaceutical industry is more powerful right now than the Congress, because until Congress takes ownership that they're more powerful than the pharmaceutical industry, then pharmaceutical industry is calling the shots. And we're getting to that shift. And as soon as the shift happens, that's when the emperor has no clothes becomes very apparent, that in the entirety of pharma's business model is reliant on government and government protected monopolies, or a government ignored monopolies. And as soon as that is realized, and as soon as the American people are like, wait, so you're saying that all the struggles that I face to pay for my drugs is fake, that the lies and propaganda that I see on my television, that, if my drug prices come down, there'll be no more cures for cancer, is not only false, but is the opposite. That in fact, if we bring drug prices down, we'll have more cures for cancer. We might have less drugs that don't provide any benefit to people, or, there's 5 different forms of Viagra, instead of, looking for research based on the need and the public health impact, instead of the ability to profit and how much money a company can make. We'll be living in a system where all of us are more healthy. We'll have more cures. We'll have more drugs that are actually designed to help and not just to make profits, sometimes harming people, as we know. Like, I really want to get into this, Jocelyn, because I've been told by so many people. I used to get told by people, don't call them a cartel. Be careful with that. They'll sue you. And I was like, yes, sue me and prove that you're not a cartel. I really want to lean into the fact that these are illegal gangsters, especially in the insulin cartel. Paul Hodson, he's the head of Sanofi. This man is a gangster. This is a John Gotti. It's the same thing. Gotti controlled the racket to make sure that sanitation, and I went through the concrete one. We know how organized crime works. Paul Hudson is the same. It's the same thing. He's illegally acting to ensure that prices go up when they should be going down, because prices naturally go down over time on something. Just remember, you never see a $450,000 Honda Civic from 1987, right? Or 1993 is, I think, when Sanofi's analog insulin was created. The price goes down unless something is wrong, and that something is illegal. We know that. So these guys are gangsters. Look at Purdue Pharmaceutical, and you can see how the shift in public sentiment, right? Like, now everyone understands those guys are just drug dealers. Those guys are the worst drug dealers on the block. They are drug pushers. They addicted America. And the fact that, they wear $6,000 suits and have their names on museums, that's just the same flashiness as a drug dealer in a mink fur coat at the heavyweight bout, right? Like, this is not complicated, people. This is just greed. This is the same story that we know and have exposed and fought and won so many times. And if you just get it in our heads, that narrative shift, that we're dealing with a bunch of criminals, and that's why the government needs to act.
Well, and it's really important to address a couple of things you said, Alex. The Sackler family has gotten off completely scot-free. They've been charged a few $1 billion, which to the untrained eye is, oh, well, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's a fraction of their net worth, and it's paid out over a series of years. It is the equivalent of me or you being hit with a fine for speeding or paying your taxes late. Sure, I'm sure they don't love it. It's fine. They will be fine. They will continue to consolidate power and do murderous things in their own interests. And it's left communities across America completely ravaged and destroyed. I mean, nobody has been left untouched by the opioid epidemic, whether or not you're aware of it. And it's, addiction, just like, I mean, I'm from rural America. I can think of 7 people I went to high school with off the top of my head whose lives were destroyed by this. And these people will continue to be billionaires and, God help us, trillionaires. And the second thing that, you mentioned, we need to talk about how these profit incentives warp research incentives. We are training PhDs and clinicians and medical doctors through rigorous academic schooling. We have a world filled with intellectual problems that need to be solved in healthcare, pandemic prevention, cancer cures, infectious diseases. But instead, people are being paid to do what's profitable, which is not to find better antibiotics for multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. It's to price gouge, to find, Viagra, a 7th type of Viagra. And I'm sorry, but if you want proof that the free market doesn't self-correct, look at what's happening in pharmaceutical research. We have things like the vaccine where the government pays for it and it all works out. But just as frequently, you have myriad unsolved medical problems because there's no money in it. Imagine a world where our incredibly sophisticated government healthcare resources were used to save lives, because that's what they exist to do. And all these people who have invested sometimes decades of their life learning about one disease or one incredibly complex medical problem can then put that intellectual firepower to saving lives, which is why you would do that. Why else would you spend all that time and energy engaging in that? And it's sickening when you think about all the people who could be alive right now had this been done correctly.
And I want to just light up another criminal group, which is the company that sells cancer treatment called Extandi. And it's a treatment for prostate cancer, which is one of, if not the most common form of cancer. Close to 100% of men, if they lived long enough, would get prostate cancer. And Extandi is a drug that was developed with entirely, every piece of it was developed with public dollars, DOD, and taxpayer dollars, but we paid for it. This company is located in Japan that bought the picture of the molecule and now has the right to sell it here. They sell it in America for 5 times what they sell it for in Japan, which is absolutely unreasonable. There's no justification for that. It's just because they can. We're the only country in the world that allows, of our peer nations, that allows drug companies to charge whatever they want. And this drug, Extandi, is around $180,000 per patient per year right now. That's just, right? And all that has to happen is there's this, I'm not going to go too far in the weeds, but it's on the books. It's by dole, and there's a provision right there in the law, and it's based on reasonableness. So is it reasonable that is $180,000 reasonable? And the answer is so clearly no, because people who need it can't afford it. And so all the government needs to do is allow this generic, which exists. It exists already. The government just has to wave them in, just be like, yep, you can now sell the exact same molecule, the exact same one that was developed with taxpayer dollars, but is not controlled by Astellas, this gangster located in Japan, who is saying that they're going to run their pricing scheme so that people are hurt in America. The profits in America are more than the profits on the same drug in the rest of the world combined. That is the con. It's the racket is us, man. That's the problem. So right now, there's a petition that we're working on with all the people. These are people who are living with prostate cancer right now, and we're working with them. They've petitioned the government to say use this existing authority to drive down drug prices, and the NIH is going to rule soon. And can we be honest here, Jocelyn, between you, me, and all the people watching?
Please.
It's very likely we're going to lose. You know why? Because the NIH for decades has literally seen it, it's not like they're falling down on their duty. They've seen it as their duty to take public research product and give it to private companies to so-called take it to market. And all that means is make as much money as possible. And then to protect the rights of those private companies to profit wildly off of the research that we have paid for. And the guy who did it, his name's Francis Collins. This guy had patents. He has patents. He profits from this system. So he is a vociferous defender of it. He philosophically believes it's the duty of the NIH to make sure that these criminals have golden yachts while people suffering from cancer can't afford the drugs that they need. And you want to hear the depressing one or whatever? I don't know what it is. You know where he is now?
Where?
The White House. Yep. He was just brought on board as the senior advisor at the White House. So some
background on Francis Collins. So he actually went to my high school. And, you know, if you want to talk about how good people get roped into doing evil things, big Protestant work ethic type of guy, wrote a book about how science makes the case for God. And, you know, a lot of people write about the banality of evil. And in this country, I think it's important to talk about the prosperity gospel ethos that is able to perpetuate a lot of this stuff. And, you know, this gentleman would come speak at our high school because, of course, it's what you do. And he, you know, he's a big fan of the idea of like the beauty of God creates good outcomes, which, I mean, I'm Catholic, so I obviously believe that too. But in America, it can take on a specifically sinister tone with, look, if you're a good person, good things will happen to you. Ipso facto, if you have millions or billions or trillions of dollars, it's probably because God likes you a whole lot and you worked super hard. And that is so baked into our culture. It's very difficult for us to get very virulent about the fact that extreme wealth almost always is actually a sign of corruption. Or at the very least, someone's corruption. Maybe you inherited it and your parents did it.
Behind every great fortune is a great crime, as the saying goes.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll even let millionaires off the hook. I'm not I'm not like most leftists in this way. At this point, unfortunately, having $1 million in this country, like maybe you're upper middle class. I'll let those people off the hook. But when you're getting into multi-millions and you're getting into billions of dollars, somebody was getting exploited. Somebody was having their rights taken away. It is spiritually, morally, and politically impossible to amass that amount of wealth in a moral way. And so that is something that our country is so divorced from at a very spiritual level. And it's at the center of every single one of our nation's original crimes, whether you're talking about enslaving people, whether you're talking about oppressing women, or exploiting the working class. It all comes down to this idea that if good things have happened to you, it's because God has smiled upon you. When in reality, if you have amassed that amount of wealth, you're probably a murderer, or someone's a murderer.
Oh man, I'm like, don't go down the theological route. We only have 9 minutes, but I have to. Just
I baited
slightly.
you.
You had to, but I mean, like that you could read the gospel and be like, yeah, you know what I think Jesus's main message was? It was like, get rich or die trying, like 50 Cent style. I'm pretty sure that's the main. What? Like the Roman Empire that he came on into, the whole story is about Roman Empire where the belief was that if you had material success, then the gods were shining on you. And if you were poor, then you were bad. That was the entire ethos of the Roman Empire at the time. And the reason why Jesus was, everyone singled him out, and why he was executed by the Romans and Pontius Pilate washed his hands and all of that is because he flipped it. And he's like, actually, the poor are the ones who will inherit the earth. The sick are the ones who matter the most. What you do for the least of us is what you, right? Like, I'm sorry, I won't stump anymore on the Bible, but man, I'd love to throw a Bible at the people who quote the prosperity gospel. They say, there's these lines that say, the poor will always be among us. And you're like, there's another phrase in that sentence. It says, comma, so open your hand to them. Do you think that maybe the comma, open your hand to them is important? And if you think
I think it's really important if you want to build yourself as a Christian nation, which I personally and privately do believe in the gospels of Jesus Christ. Great. I also believe that the government should be a secular space, but it is deeply insulting to have a nation which bills itself as Christian, to have legislatures which bill themselves as doing God's work, to then go around murdering people for the crime of being poor when they allegedly partake in a religion which claims that poverty is a spiritual thing and that people who have the least are the first in the eyes of God. And again, getting back to, Pharma specifically, we have agreed in this country that it is okay to die if you are poor. Because when we make the price of admission to a healthy life thousands of dollars, health insurance, which is tied to employment, the implicit text in that is if you don't have these things, you deserve to be executed. And I'm not okay with that. I don't think you're okay with that. Anyone who claims to be even mildly religious should not be okay with that. And it's deeply insulting to have a Catholic president in the White House who claims to agree with everything I'm saying. He went to Connors High School, actually. He went to a Catholic high school, and yet has the power to fix this today with a series of executive orders and isn't. Because let's blame Joe Manchin instead.
And what we're going to see with Extandi is the first time. It's the first case that, the Biden administration will have a clear shot of drug, and the price would come down just precipitously. And it would go from, 6 figures to 3 figures or 4 figures. And they're almost certainly going to deny it. And the NIH is going to be like, well, actually, the price, what we don't know. This is what they say. I know this because we've been doing this for so long. We've done this before. And they say, we don't know how to say what price is reasonable or not. And you're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? First of all, here's a mathematical formula that we created, that the WHO, Jamie Love at Knowledge Ecology International created. The whole world is like, yeah, that's a great way of saying what's reasonable. Look at the prices of other countries that your country looks like. Take the average of them. You can even sock on a little bit. And then if you're wildly above that, not reasonable. Across the board, our prices are wildly above our peer nations, all of them. There's no way. And this is a legal thing, right? We see this all the time where courts are like, it's not reasonable that the company is charging, it's price discrimination. right? They can't actually do that. And we see the court be able to see that. That's almost certainly what's going to happen, that the NIH is going to deny it. I think, and I work every day to get the word out and put pressure on them. We've driven in thousands of letters to the NIH. But what happens is we're not going to take it, Jocelyn. We're not going to accept that this is just like, well, the bureaucracy says that people have to die. Then F the bureaucracy, man. The bureaucracy has to die then. Get rid of them. Clean slate, new thing. The NIH works for HHS. Javier Becerra is the guy who we're going to take it to. If Javier Becerra, who has previously been endorsed government use to deal with high prices and shortages when he was AG of California, if Javier Becerra, the head of HHS, says that, they don't have the authority, we're going to take it to the White House and say, you have the authority. We will keep this fight up forever, which is why we're going to win. I don't know if you want to take us out with, let's actually take us out with clip 6, I think. And then Jocelyn, after Senator Warren tells us what we're doing, you can say bye to everybody. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
I am so glad that the Make Meds Affordable campaign is launching today to put these issues front and center in America. I'm excited to join their calls to President Biden and Secretary Becerra to use their existing authorities, things that Congress has already authorized them to do, to use those authorities to lower drug prices and to crack down on the monopoly power of giant pharmaceutical companies. Americans have been waiting long enough for government to take action to lower drug prices. Enough is enough. It is time to act right now.
Amen. We'll see you all next week, and feel free to tweet at the president. Brad said that when we were talking about the show. Definitely tweet at the president, show up at the White House, refuse to leave, whatever you feel called to do. And hopefully we will have very exciting updates the next time we talk. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.